We're seeking steam columns and deploying fortifications. That's right, it's Steamwatchers from Mythic Games. In this post-apocalyptic Ice Age world, 2 to 5 players take on the role of clan leaders, each controlling a nomadic faction of survivors as they search the wasteland for the life-giving steam columns that emerge from the planet's core. The clan who controls the most geothermal resources or obtains a supremacy victory condition wins the game. Setup varies based on the player count. We're planning for a 4-player game today, which begins with the game board placed center. Set the Death and Exile tile nearby and place the round tracker token on the 0 space. Then place the Primus and Legate tokens on the matching spaces of the Conclave track. Now it's time for scenario selection. Each scenario is played over 3 to 5 game rounds. There are a number of them in the book, all beginning on page 16. We're going to set up for the War Returns scenario today, since it's the classic game mode. We'll follow the additional setup instructions and take note of any special rules, but in this case, there are none. Next, shuffle the Steam column cards and place the deck face down on the top left space of the board. Then set up the initial Steam columns as listed in the scenario by revealing the top card of the deck. We then set up a number of Steam levels as shown on the card. Do this as many times as listed in the scenario setup. War Returns has 3 cards worth of Steam columns. Players now choose their clan. Randomly select a first player who selects one clan from the clan boards and takes the associated board and clan components. They then place their ambassador token on a free space of the title claim track. Each space corresponds to a title they may gain in the first round. Clan selection then proceeds clockwise until all players have selected a clan. Each clan board has a clan name and insignia, special action spaces, algafuel stocks, pure and contraband, incubation track, supply track, and abilities of elite soldiers and their clan. The last player to choose their clan takes the deployment cards and chooses one to keep and deploys their forces on the indicated areas. That player then allocates their starting forces as shown on the back of their clan board, distributing them on those areas, but minding area capacity limits. In most cases, areas cannot exceed 5 units from the same clan and no more than 2 buildings. The player also places a level 3 Steam column in one of their deployment areas. The deployment cards are then passed counterclockwise to the next player, who follows the same process until all players have deployed. All players then set their markers on the geothermal resources track to the 5th space and sets up their clan board by placing a barrel of algo fuel of their respective type on the free spaces of their algo fuel stocks, the incubation marker on the 0 space of the incubation track, and the supply marker on the 10th space of the supply track. Now we're ready to play. Gameplay occurs in rounds, each divided into 5 phases: Conclave, Order Planning, Order Activation, Steam Subsides, and Whiteout. First up, in the Conclave Phase, the first player on the title claim track moves the round marker 1 space forward. Then, in the order shown on the track, each player moves their ambassador to the matching title space on the Conclave track. When moving, they gain an immediate ability depending on the space. Watcher. This title allows its claimant to draw 3 cards from the Steam column deck, discarding 1 and keeping the other 2 in hand. The discarded card's Steam column is placed in its listed area. If any Watcher tiles were not claimed during the round, draw and discard the top card from the deck and resolve its Steam column effect instead. Careener's Legate. This title allows the player to take the Legate token and place it on any ice flow area. Areas on the board come in 3 types: plains, mountain, and ice flow. This token counts as a contract, more on that in a sec, and the player suffers no movement penalties from the Archon. Archon. This title allows the player to draw 3 cards from the Archon deck, adding them to their hand. They then play an Archon card from their hand, reading its effects out loud and placing it face up next to the Archon deck. This card remains in effect until covered by another Archon card. Primus. This title allows the player to take the Primus token and place it on any space of the title claim track except Primus. No other players can claim that title until after you have passed in the order activation phase. The Primus claimant also places 1 base soldier from their supply to an area that they control. Next, in the order planning phase, all players place their order tokens face down on the board and then simultaneously reveal them. In the first step, each player places 1 face down order token in any area that contains 1 or more of their units. Each area can only hold 1 order token, and some players might not have enough order tokens to place orders in each area. The order token types include move, defense, and decoy. Once all the tokens have been placed, players simultaneously flip them to their order side, immediately returning decoy tokens to their clan supply. Decoys are just for faking folks out. Next, in the order activation phase, players take turns activating tokens in the order shown on the Conclave track. Each player on their turn must either activate one of their tokens, returning it to their supply after it's resolved, or pass for the round. Let's look at the tokens. Move allows a group of units in that area to move to new areas in 2 types of ways. Basic, which allows the units to move adjacently, obeying any movement rules on the map. Moving across ice flows requires the Seafaring contract. If a player ever leaves an area they control with all of their units, they may optionally place a beacon in that spot, retaining control for now. Forced March allows a group of units to move by 2 contiguous plains areas, notably not mountain or ice flows. Units cannot move through areas controlled by enemy units or exceed an area's capacity. Defense tokens activate 1 of 4 actions, 2 of which are basic and 2 of which are special. Turret. This basic action fortifies an area, providing +2 strength to the defender in combat. This bonus is only available if at least 1 unit is in the area. Or wait. This basic action delays a player's turn, allowing them to pass without fully passing for the round. Mobilize is a special action which the player moves to a free special action space on their board, after which they may deploy either 2 base soldiers or 1 elite soldier. In either case, they can be placed in the area or in an adjacent area. Barter is another special action usable on an area with a haven. This allows the player to place a Careener's contract token on a free space in an ice flow, allowing them to move into and through that area. And that's the tokens. Once a player chooses to pass, they take all remaining move tokens off the board and back to their supply, leaving defense tokens on the board. These still provide a defensive benefit on an opponent's turn. And claim a title for the next round by moving their ambassador to the title claim track. Note that the Primus has a reserved spot if they want it, but they may choose to select a different space. In either case, the Primus token is removed and the ambassador is placed. Players are not allowed to choose the space matching their current title unless it is the last free space. After all players have passed, play moves to the Steam Subsides phase, where all the Steam columns lose 1 level. First, remove a level from columns in areas with no units. Then, in order shown by the title claim track, Each player removes one level from all steam columns in areas under their control. This increases a clan's incubation level for each removed if they have units in that space. In the case where the last level is removed, the player may also spend one algo fuel from their board to build a farm in that area. Algo fuel comes in two types, pure and contraband. Contraband increases the incubation level by 1 win spent. Additionally, players have a surplus area on their board for excess algo fuel. This area will be cleared in the next phase. Finally, in the Whiteout phase, players prepare for the next round by updating their geothermal resources level, which is the sum of farms in areas they control, total steam column levels in their areas, and any points from scenario rules. Players adjust their markers accordingly. Return incubation markers to the 0 space of the incubation track. Then, if the victory condition of the scenario has been met by a player, or if the round limit has been reached, they check to see who won the game. More on that in a sec. Each player then resets their algo fuel stocks onto their free spaces and removes any from the surplus back to the general supply. Players then adjust their supply track matching their new geo level, which limits the number of units they can have on the game board. If a player has more on the board at this point, they must remove units down to the limit. Players then choose which contracts to keep, spending 1 algo fuel per contract and returning the rest. Each player collects any remaining order tokens on the board or on their special action spaces, removes all morale cubes from the board, and returns the legate and primus tokens to the Conclave track. A new round begins with the Conclave Phase. Some additional rules. Combat. Whenever units from different clans share an area, combat is initiated. The active player is considered the attacker and their opponent is the defender. Combat is split into 3 steps. Calculate base strength by adding the strength of units, base soldiers are each 1, elites are 2, plus any defensive tokens and any support. Support comes from returning an order token in an adjacent area to the supply and adding that area's army's strength to the fight. Battle. Once both strength totals have been calculated, each player uses their combat dial to secretly allocate an amount of algo fuel, each providing 1 additional strength. Players simultaneously reveal and determine who has the highest strength and thus wins. Ties go to the attacker. Outcome. To represent their combat losses, the defeated player must remove 2 units engaged in the battle and return them to their clan supply. If the defender lost, they must move their units to an adjacent space they control, and if they can't, they remove the units from the board. If the attacker lost, they return their units to the space from which they moved. The winner of the battle controls the contested area and may choose to keep or destroy any remaining buildings. Finally, the area gains a morale cube, which provides 2 extra strength when defending. These cubes are returned to the supply during Whiteout. Incubation track. These levels mark the clan's protection against the Bane. Whenever players must raise their incubation level, generally due to spending contraband alga fuel or when steam subsides, then they take the immediate effect. The first 3 spaces don't offer any sort of penalty, but upper levels include taking a quarantine token, which covers a crucial space for the rest of the game, or even sending a unit to the death and exile tile. This level is reset to 0 at the end of each round. Rounds continue with players duking it out and playing politics until one of 2 endgame conditions are met. One player achieves a supremacy victory as listed in the scenario, or the round limit of the scenario has been met. Each player lowers their geothermal resources level by 1 for every 2 units on the death and exile tile. and the player with the most geothermal resources wins the game. And that's the basics of Steamwatchers. I'm Becca Scott, and you can watch me explain this game and other awesome games right here on Geek and Sundry. We'll see you later.